President Biden will sign a $95 billion foreign aid package that has critical U.S. allies breathing a sigh of relief. The Senate overwhelmingly passing the measure, which provides needed funding to Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan.
We tell our allies, we stand with you. We tell our adversaries, don't mess with us. We tell the world, the United States will do everything to safeguard democracy and our way of life.
Also included in the bill, the forced sale, effectively a ban on TikTok. President Biden has said that he plans to sign the bill today. Shortly after the vote, Republican leader Mitch McConnell, who's been one of Kyiv's strongest advocates in Washington, offered this stark assessment of why many in his party had turned on Ukraine.
I think the demonization of Ukraine began by Tucker Carlson, who, in my opinion, ended up where he should have been all along, which is interviewing Vladimir Putin.
Where he should have been all along, interviewing Vladimir Putin. Let's bring in our panel. Ron Brownstein, senior editor at The Atlantic. Matt Gorman, former senior advisor to Tim Scott's presidential campaign. And Fez Shakir, who is advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders. Welcome all. Ron,
morning.
Vladimir Putin, Tucker Carlson, Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
Walk into a bar, question mark?
Yeah, and who's missing in that sentence? Donald Trump. I mean, sure, Tucker Carlson ended up where he should have been interviewing Vladimir Putin, but Mitch McConnell is kind of punching down and kind of ignoring the elephant, I guess, in the Republican Party in the room, which is Donald Trump and Donald Trump's demonization of Ukraine, his resistance to this aid package.
Although Trump, in the end, I mean, he was hands off.
In the end,
he could have killed this, I think.
In the end, he was hands off. But certainly his opposition, it's interesting. I think it was Eric Schmidt, the senator from Missouri, who pointed out on the first vote, when a majority of Senate Republicans voted against this as a standalone, that virtually everyone elected to the Senate, every Republican elected to the Senate after 2018 voted against it, right? Basically, the Republicans in the Trump era, are dubious of America's traditional role. There is still obviously a piece of the Republican Party that is supportive of that. But the direction of the party in the Trump era is towards skepticism about America as kind of the Reaganite leader of the free world. And that, I think, adds to the pressure of those center-right suburban Republican voters who have felt more and more marginalized in the Trump era.
Matt Gorman, I mean, to pick up on Ron's point there, I mean, is this an inevitable shift? Because there is this possibility that we just continue going down that way. I mean, Mitch McConnell's on his way out, right?
Yeah.
Now, that said, Mike Johnson, also a Trumpian, a Republican in the Trump mold, started getting intelligence briefings and said, oh, wait, we need to do this.
Look, I think about 50 or so of those 112 Republicans in the House that voted against this were part of the vote no but hope yes kind of caucus, if you will. I think for a really true test on where this stood, at least in the House, look to that Marjorie Taylor Greene amendment that would have zeroed out all Ukrainian. How about 71 people? I think it's a fairly accurate prediction. But I think, like most things in the Trump era, it didn't fundamentally flip everything on its head. It accelerated change that were already coming. We saw sort of this bubble up 10 years ago with Syria. Remember the Rand Paul wing of the party? That was where this came up. This has been percolating and bubbling ever since the end of Iraq or so, right? The Bush years.
I mean,
this is where the rubber hits the road.
It's been kind of a theme in American history,
well,
right?
I mean, that's even, look, famously, the battle between the isolationists and the internationalist wings of the Republican Party was settled in 1952 when Dwight Eisenhower beat isolationist Robert Taft for the nomination. And over the next 60 years, in every Republican presidential administration, the internationalist forces dominated. Even when Trump was elected, there was still that kind of history and muscle memory that influenced his own administration. And there was a lot of resistance to his criticism of NATO and his kind of pulling back on that traditional role. And I think with Mike Johnson, you did see more of that kind of resurface than you might have expected in this fight. But overall, the general trajectory is that part of the party is receding. The isolationist, Trumpian, nationalist J.D. Vance part is ascending. And if you are just under, like in polling by the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, just under half of Republican voters say they support an aggressive role for America in the world. They are now the minority. And they have to face the reality that on most issues, the party is going to continue to evolve away, not toward them.
I thought it was interesting. Jonathan Martin of Politico had a really richly reported piece about
yes. We have
how,
that.
yes, exactly. And it was about how Mike Johnson lobbied Trump, so to speak, and how the Republicans lobbied Trump to. Because I agree with you. You could have killed this bill if you wanted to stay in the silence. And it was an interesting piece. It was essentially saying, President Trump, if you are elected and you let them sack Kyiv, you will enter office in chaos in Europe. And it was obviously convincing.
Yeah. Well, and in that piece, Jonathan Martin at Politico also writes about foreign leaders who were lobbying Donald Trump. The British Foreign Prime Minister David Cameron, he writes, also made the Palm Beach pilgrimage. He went down to Mar-a-Lago and underscored that Europe actually was making this financial commitment, and they had made a commitment to Ukraine. They say he writes, it was also no coincidence Cameron and foreign ministers of Germany and Italy cut a video, good way to talk to Trump, from the G7 Foreign Ministers Conference last week where they emphasized this need. And as significant, the Polish president, Duda, made his own well-timed trek to see Trump, this time at Trump Tower in Manhattan, used a lengthy Wednesday dinner last night to discuss Europe doing more for Ukraine and Putin's expansionist appetites. So, Fez, I mean, this clearly also demonstrates that these leaders are preparing for Donald Trump to potentially be elected again. But this bill also included aid for Israel, which is contentious on the Democratic side. What do you see here?
Yeah, that's right. Senator Sanders, for whom I, managed his presidential campaign, voted against this. And specifically because of Israel. And the U.S.-Israel relationship, I think, is one of the most struggling points right now, because I think a vast majority of Democrats within the Democratic Party are wanting some accountability for Netanyahu's actions. And when you have the wanton killing of, 30,000 plus civilians in Gaza without any sense of, is there accountability when you go over the line from an American government? Now now that President Biden's gotten the funding, I think a lot of progressives, a lot of people in the Democratic Party are going to say, okay, so you've got the funding now. It doesn't have to flow without condition. What are you going to do to institute some condition? Use that as leverage. This is now that point for President Biden to show, hey, yeah, I got money in my pocket to give to you with some strings attached, and change in the behavior of Israel.
There's a day on the calendar circled, May 8th, which is the day that the Biden administration has to report to Congress whether Israel is using the arms we are sending in accordance with international law, and also whether they are impeding the flow not only of aid directly from the U.S., but from international organizations that we support. That was part of an earlier deal with Senate Democrats who opposed unconditional aid. The administration is going to have to certify, and that would be another flashpoint on the kind of conditions that Faiz was talking about.
Very interesting.